So the question here is 2021, Palou won the championship. 22 had legal challenges and had a down year. Alex, 2023, he won a championship. So for 2024, is it going to be a kind of copy of this pattern that we're seeing and it's an off year upon us? Or do we think maybe we could see Alex breaking the chain here and potentially have a back-to-back championship on our hands?
I think it's hard to argue against him contending to go back-to-back championships here. I mean, if we're going to have a pattern here, we better be watching out for some legal trouble because, I don't know, that would not be good for Alex Palou. But I see no reason that Alex Palou couldn't just continue the success that he's had recently in IndyCar. I mean, he was the guy to beat last year. Josef Newgarden was on the ovals, but through the overall season, Alex Palou was the guy, and he proved it. He won the championship, a race early, so I don't see that changing. I don't know if he is going to win the championship. I think it's too early for that. It's far from pullover. Haven't even started, but it's going to be fun to watch for sure.
I can't believe he only won 5 races last year. I mean, it just feels like he was even more dominant than that. And I guess in many respects he was with all those podiums. And like you mentioned, Jackson, your worst finish throughout the entire year was in 8th place. I mean, how many drivers on the grid would, just get one 8th place finish and say, we had a great day. We can take a lot to, use that as momentum for the rest of the season here. If they get a result like that early in the season, they'd be ecstatic. For Palou, that was his worst finish of the year. That was something that, he didn't want to see at all because he knew he was capable of wins and podiums all the time. So, you couple that with the fact that he's picked up a DHL sponsorship now and coming off of the first time in, 16 years, I guess, if you throw the Champ Car years with Sebastian Bourdais in there, really 18 more accurately with the IRL history that IndyCar can trace itself back to, that we had a champion already crowned and already clinched before going into the final race even. And then you have Palou picking up this sponsorship now on top of that. I think that there's absolutely no reason to believe that he couldn't just go back out and repeat again. We're going to talk about who might be his closest contender. I know Alex was alluding to it a little bit, and we'll talk about him very shortly here. But it's not that he doesn't have any competition, but I think it's going to be very hard for that competition to stop him given everything that he's got going for him right now.
Yeah, and last season, it really seemed like Alex Palou had a golden horseshoe the entire season. Like you were saying, Ben, about the 8th place finish. If 8th place is your worst finish of the year, think about, all the things that could go wrong throughout the year, and for him not to have a DNF, and even Toronto, when he lost part of his front wing there, people thought, that was going to, put him down the running order, but he was still able to salvage a great day from that. And the amount of drive Palou had, many great drives throughout the year. And we add in all the luck, it was an extremely dominant season, like you were just saying, Jackson, by IndyCar standards. Is very impressive. And in 2024, would not surprise me to see Alex Palou in the fight again for the championship. But one thing that's going to be very interesting is that Chip Ganassi Racing is expanding to 5 full-time entries with rookie Kiffin Simpson. And time again in racing, we've seen when a team expands, sometimes it can take away from the other cars, and we could see a dip in performance. So I think that would be my one concern about, saying that maybe Alex Palou may not defend his championship in 2024 because when they're adding more resources to Kiffin Simpson's, right, maybe that could take away some of the speed from the other entries that Kiffin has.
We're going to get into the rookie talk a bit more here, but I do think that's an interesting thing, as Adam says. Hi, guys. Ready for the 2024 IndyCar season. Palou, huge target on his back. Going to have to perform strong in 2024. Absolutely agree to that. Kobe, going back to that, I think it's just a level of confidence from Chip Ganassi of if all of our guys are performing, if Scott Dixon is able to find his way to the front, if Marcus Armstrong is able to win Rookie of the Year without even doing half of the races. Remember, he didn't do any of the ovals last year. There's a level of confidence, I think, for this team that he has that we're able to balance this and still be championship caliber. But I absolutely think Palou is going to be in that same championship form as we've seen. But I think the real question is who's going to maybe stand up and try and keep that from happening. And I think while Palou had more wins, there's one guy we got to talk about that was incredibly close. And that was your 4-time winner last year, almost swept all the ovals, Team Penske's Josef Newgarden. Again, 4 wins, including the Indianapolis 500, but did not match up to the consistency that Newgarden had. That ended a streak of him being runner-up in the championship for the last 3 seasons. He finished 5th in the standings. That was all after, however, he was the 2019 Series championship. That was his second championship. So the big question then, Ben, do we think Newgarden is one of the top 2 drivers to contend for the championship again?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you have to take Palou versus the field here, I think the field's top contender would be Josef Newgarden's, almost solely based on how he dominated the ovals last year. And of course, now we're ending the season on the Nashville Superspeedway Oval rather than the street circuit. So if it comes down to a close or tight championship battle, maybe that plays in Newgarden's favor. Of course, he's going to be a threat to go back-to-back at Indianapolis, I'm sure, as well. And he's been here before. He's won a championship in this series before. And, I think that he's absolutely going to be a threat here, along with maybe a couple of others. But, certainly if you're looking at who has the most energy behind him to take the fight to Alex Palou, Josef Newgarden's dominance on the ovals last year. Of course, we talked about Palou's dominance overall, but Newgarden really owned the ovals. Got a couple more added to the schedule this year. Maybe that plays in Newgarden's favor, and we might actually get a championship battle that goes down to the final race.
Yeah, Ben, and considering how dominant Josef Newgarden has been in the NTT IndyCar Series, I still find it hard to believe he hasn't won a championship since 2019. Of course, he's a 2-time champion, got his first one in 2017, but I totally agree with what you were saying there. Especially looking at the finale, Nashville Super Speedway, if Josef Newgarden is still mathematically eligible for the championship, heading to the final round, his home race, what would be more special, than winning a championship at home? And
I'm streaming right now.
You're winning a championship at home, and I think that would be a really special thing for Josef Newgarden. And overall, I think he's going to be more fired up than ever to try to get that third IndyCar championship. I think he very well could be the driver who could really take the fight to Palou this year.
Now, I might surprise you guys here, considering my background and everything, but I don't know if Josef Newgarden actually is the guy who can go head-to-toe with Alex Palou. He finished 5th in the championship a year ago, and that's primarily because of how he performed on the road and street courses last year. And it seems Team Penske really put a lot of focus into the ovals last year to get him the Indy 500 win, and I really wonder this year if they're going to try and put more focus back on the road and street courses this year. I don't have definitive proof that that's what they did, but that's kind of seems to be what happened. That's speculation on my part. But if they can figure out the road and street courses again for Team Penske, specifically on the 2 car, yeah, like easily, Josef Newgarden is the number 2 guy. But looking at last year, I don't think you can confidently say that. And that would mean, well, who is it? I'm going to save that for my bold predictions later in the show. But Josef, yeah, the ovals, he's got them covered. There's 7 of them. He could win all 7, and it would not surprise me. It's going to be those road and street courses where it's going to come down to competing with Alex Palou or whoever else shows up this year.
We really can kind of call it a season of 2 halves here, guys, because there's such a density of road and street courses in the first half, and now we have this whole back half with now short tracks and one final super speedway to be the finale, which I'm super excited for. But I think when we look at how dominant that Newgarden was on these ovals, I think you've got to imagine, he could be 5th in the championship, even further back. And looking at how he's performing after Indy, I think he's still potentially in that fight.